thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment.
A lot of Indians are not happy with some of the bills and acts which have come into being in the recent past. For example, the CAB 2019, many people are really concerned about this bill, and many people are saying that these are not following the constitution in many ways. Today, we are going to talk about one of these bills which have come into being in the recent past. It's the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill, which was passed by both the houses of the parliament and it became an act. Yes, the transgender bill has become an act now, and we are going to talk about it today. But before that, we need to have a clear understanding of who a transgender person is. Let us have a look what one of the parliamentarians think about the definition of transgender.
फिजिकल सेक्सुअल ऑर्गन ठीक से बनते नहीं हैं तब वो ट्रांसजेंडर बनते हैं, और जिनके सब नॉर्मल बनने के बाद भी उनके हार्मोनल थोड़े से अलग होते हैं तब उनको बाद में फीलिंग होती है कि वो शायद अपना सेक्सुअल ओरिएंटेशन चेंज करना चाहते हैं.
Unfortunately, this is not the definition of transgender. A person not identifying with the gender which has been assigned to them at birth is known as a transgender. That is, a person who is identifying with some other gender than the one which has been assigned to her or him or them at birth. Now the question comes, if this act is really about the protection of transgender people, if it is all about protection of us, then why are so many transgender people protesting against it? In order to understand that, we have to go back in time. In April 2014, the Supreme Court of India passed the Nalsa judgment, according to which any citizen of India has the right to self-identify themselves as any gender they wish to be. That means their names and gender can be reflected in legal papers which will align with their psychological gender. And the Nalsa judgment also acknowledges the psychological aspect of gender and not the biological one. But things changed when the transgender bill was first tabled in the Lok Sabha. Now, when the transgender bill was passed in the Lok Sabha, the definition of transgender also tried to stick to this understanding, but it contradicted itself in the later clauses of the bill, and it contradicted Nalsa at the same time. At first, there was supposed to be a screening committee to decide your gender and give you a certificate whether you're a transgender person or not. After a lot of protests from activists, lawyers, and many people, this clause was revised. But the power was transferred from the screening committee, which consisted 5 people, to a district magistrate, a single person who is a government official. According to the present act, the district magistrate has all the power to certify you as a transgender. And what is the basis of this certification? It is very, very vague, because it says the district magistrate must be satisfied to give you the certificate. Now, what is the basis of this satisfaction is not written in the bill, and this is something which has a lot of potential for corruption. This not only violates the Nalsa but also the Article 14 of the Constitution, which is right to equality before law. Why am I saying this? Because a cisgendered person doesn't have to go to any district magistrate to get certified as a cisgendered person. Then why should a transgender person have to go to a district magistrate or any government official to get certified as who they are? Apart from that, the Transgender Act, in a way, attacks the psychological aspect of gender when it says that if a transgender person wants to identify as male or female, they have to undergo surgery. That means if A is assigned male at birth and A wants to identify as a female, then they would have to undergo sex reassignment surgery in order to prove that they are a female. And it not only violates the Nalsa but also Article 21 of the Constitution, which is right to life and personal liberty, because it is taking away from a transgender person the right to choose not to undergo a surgery. Now, the Act doesn't stop there. Let us go and have a look at the clause which talks about the safety and security of transgender kids. According to this Act, no kid, no transgender child can be separated from their parents or from their immediate family on the basis of they being transgenders. Now, if you're not aware of it, let us tell you that there are so many transgender kids who have to face a lot of violence, domestic violence and abuse from their family, siblings and their extended family, and it is not safe for many of them to stay in their family setup. So, if an NGO or any organization working for the upliftment of transgender people rescues a transgender kid from their abusive household, it is illegal. So this is something really unfair, and it is actually not thinking about the safety of transgender kids. Finally, let us have a look at the clauses talking about penalties for violence against trans person. Forcing a trans person to leave their household, physically abusing them, or even sexually abusing them, all of these have the same amount of punishment. Different kinds of crime and violence against the victim might have different degrees of harm on them, and this is like bringing all these violences under the same category, which is something very unfair. The trans community is not at all happy with the punishments for rape against transgender people. If a person is raping a cisgendered woman, the minimum amount of punishment is 7 years in jail. When we compare it to the punishment which is against raping a transgender person, it is only 6 months or max to max 2 years with a fine. This is also violating the Article 14, which is right to equality before law, because the amounts of punishment against rape of transgender people and cis people, if they're different, then it is discrimination, it is legal discrimination, and this is something that cannot be tolerated. So, in these many ways, the Transgender Act is unconstitutional. It is violating the NALSA, it is violating Article 21 and Article 14. So what can be done? Many of the transgender people across this country are demanding amendment of this bill. Some people are asking for scrapping of this act. We, as part of the transgender community, are suggesting some amendments which are very crucial to this act. Number 1, there should be a committee of transgender people belonging from every section of the transgender community while redrafting or amending the Transgender Act. Number 2, we suggest that the NALSA judgment is seen as the basis of the Transgender Act. That is, every individual should have the right to self-identify, and it is on the basis of self-identification that this whole act should be framed. Number 3, no person should be forced legally to undergo surgery, or nobody should say that you cannot identify as a male or a female if you are not undergoing surgery, because gender, I must repeat, is not a biological thing, it is a psychological aspect. Number 4, there should be enough security and safety for children who are transgenders from their abusive parents and family members. So if a governmental or non-governmental organization is trying to relocate these kids from their abusive parents and abusive family, they should be allowed to do so. They should not be stopped from it. Number 5, there is not enough visibility and representation of transgender people in our society because of age-old stigma and discrimination. So there should be at least a minimum reservation in jobs and education for transgender people so that we can come back to the mainstream life. Number 6, the punishments against rape and any kind of sexual abuse of transgender people should be taken more seriously by the government. 6 months or maximum 2 years is nothing as compared to minimum 7 years of jail for raping a cis woman. So this has to be taken very seriously. We cannot encourage the society to rape and sexually exploit the trans people. Apart from these suggestions, we also demand and request the government to come up with mandatory awareness and gender sensitization classes in schools and colleges and also in workplaces. We also request the Government of India to conduct a proper survey among transgender people of India in order to understand that what exactly they want as amendments in this act. To remind you, this act is all about the protection of transgender people. So in order to protect us, the government needs to have a look at what we are thinking and understand us, and then go ahead and make an act to protect us. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch more videos on transgender lives on the transgender spectrum and you want to know more about it, please subscribe our channel, hit on the bell icon and keep following us.